In this video, we are going to cover ActiveRecord relationships. This is what we cover in week 4 of our class, and should be a good review if you weren't here last week, just so that you can stay up to speed with the rest of the course. So an ActiveRecord relationship is a relationship between two tables. In the case of our Twitter example, we currently have one table. If we look at our schema, it's the tweets table, and that table has a username and a status. Now, this can get really tricky for us because username is not unique, and you can have situations where you may have two users of the same name, or you want to look up all of the tweets by a specific user. It can get a little bit messy if we include both the username and the status inside of one table. So instead, we're going to break this out, and we're going to create two different tables, one for the users and one for the individual statuses. And the relationship with those tables, if you think about it, is that a user can have many tweets, and every tweet belongs to a user. So think about that again. A user has many tweets, but each tweet belongs to a specific user. So that's the relationship that we're going to build out as we create these tables. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is create a new model. We have our tweet model. Let's create a user model. So let's create a model, new file, call it user.rb. And in the same way that we have our tweet class, I'm just going to copy this, paste, we are going to create our user class. Now we need to connect this user to a table, an ActiveRecord table, and to do that we need to use our rake tasks. So I'm going to clear this down here, and we can remind ourselves of the tasks available to us by typing rake-t. And if you remember, when we want to create a new table or change a table, we use rake db create migration, and then you give it a name. So we'll say rake db create migration, name equals, let's call it create users table. Okay, we can see that migration has been created. And for this one, we'll create an up and a down for the migration. So for the up, we want to create a new user table. So we would type create table and give it the name users. Remember, naming is important. The table is plural, the model is singular. So create table users. And we're going to use T as that placeholder for our table. And what are the pieces of information that we need for our user table? Well, we want to know the username, so we'll say t.string username. And why don't we also take in the user's email? We won't worry about passwords and such until later on. So t.string. And the reverse of this, if we want to roll back our table, would just be drop table users. Now, if you remember, we've created this migration, but if we actually want to put it into play, we will run rake db migrate. We run the migration, we can see that this was all created. If we go to our schema, you can see that now we have a users table and we have a tweets table. So we need to connect them, and we have an issue. This username is redundant now. We have a user model, so we don't want to be containing the username in our tweets. What we do want, though, is a way to connect tweets to users, and that's by the user ID. So we are whenever we create a new user, it will automatically get an ID, and it's a unique ID that will be assigned to that user. So we want our tweets table to have a column user ID that will connect that tweet to whatever user is creating that tweet. So let's create a new migration to alter our tweets table. So we'll type again rake db create migration, and our name is going to be add user ID and remove username. We can make these real long and descriptive. From tweets. So there's our migration. Now this time, instead of using def up and down, I'm just going to use change. Change is a little bit, it's got like a little magic. It basically will automatically figure out what the rollback is for whatever changes you're making to the schema. So here, instead of creating table, we are going to change our columns. So the first thing I want to do is remove the column, the username column that we don't need anymore. So we type remove column, and we start by saying what table it's in. So tweets. Then what's the name of the column, username, and what type of data it is, string. And now we want to add in the user ID column that will be an integer, and that will connect our tweet to our user. So we'll add, we're adding to the tweets table. We're using, calling this column user ID, and this is going to be an integer. So let's save that and run it. So we run our migration, rake db migrate. We've got an error. Oh, I misspelled column. Great. Good error. So let's try that again. Rake db migrate. Perfect. And let's look at our schema just to be sure. So, okay, this is perfect. We see our tweets table has, for each tweet, a tweet will have a status and a user ID. And our user table, each user will have a username and email, and automatically will have an ID. So even though we don't see the user ID, that gets created automatically. So we'll stop there, and let's play with this before we actually get to building tweets. Let's play with this in Tux. So I'm going to open up Tux. Now, if you have tweets already created in your table, you should go ahead and delete them. So you would just type tweet.destroy all. That'll destroy any tweets that currently exist. And let's start by creating a new user. So user.new. And the username will be Danny, email Daniel. Ah, interesting. So we don't have this, we have an uninitialized constant user. So our issue here is that we actually haven't connected our user class to the program, to the application. So we did that earlier on for our tweet. So we just need to do the same thing. We need to require ./app/models/user and save. We'll exit and reload Tux.